Okay. Apa lagi hari tu persoalan yang timbul? Faiz ada nak tanya soalan? Faiz Hakim nampak ada angkat tangan tu?
Madam,
Siapa tu?
Adena.
Hmm.
Saya nak tanya untuk yang caveat tu kan entry and removal kan?
Yeah, entry and removal.
Yang tu pakai notice ke application?
Notice ke application maksudnya borang ke apa tu? Borang dia.
Borang.
Borang tu kan borang 19G dan borang 19 apa yang satu lagi withdrawal tu? G dan pakai borang tu. Notice yang kalau you tengok dekat belakang National Land Code tu memang borang yang notice lah borang 19G dengan withdrawal ialah 19 berapa saya tak ingat. Tapi that is the forms.
Okay.
Dan maklumat dalam tu sebab dekat borang tu you akan kena isi alasan kan, alasan kenapa nak masukkan caveat. Itu boleh buat dalam bahasa Melayu. And beside the caveat tu, biasanya dia akan dilampirkan dengan satu statutory declaration. Satu lagi surat akuan surat akuan bersumpah lah, statutory declaration. Maknanya bila kita masuk borang caveat tu, beside the forms, we have to attach together dengan satu lagi statutory declaration dekat belakang tu. So the statutory declaration can be in BM or can be in English. Ada version English, ada version BM. Ada firm yang buat dalam English, ada firm yang buat dalam bahasa Melayu. So boleh guna dua-dua lah kalau you all jumpa template tu, boleh guna either one untuk statutory declaration di belakang borang caveat. Okay, ada lagi soalan? Mungkin because this is in the process, because macam borang-borang ni kita belum tengok in detail lah dia dalam lecture seterusnya. Okay. Jadi because you punya due date untuk all these forms dan individual assignment ialah minggu ke-8 So insyaAllah minggu depan kita akan tengok secara detail cara nak isi borang ni, what are the things. Macam borang 14A tu semalam saya Dayana yang tanya, ada deletions kat tepi tu, itu memang the practice lah. Maksudnya bila you isi the forms, you kena delete some of the particulars yang not relevant. You kena delete and then you kena buat initial pada tempat-tempat yang you delete tu. Kalau you tengok sampel tu dia ada delete dan ada tanda tangan kecil kat tepi tu, we call it initial to indicates that the deletion was done by the lawyer or by someone lah. So boleh tengok dekat situ juga Okay, ada soalan lain berkenaan dengan assignments? Hopefully everyone is clear insyaAllah. Okay, so for today, because last week we have actually learned about drafting sale and purchase agreement sub-sale. So today we are going to look at the details of the terms of the SPA. Macam mana kita, how these provisions and terms tu is drafted in the actual sale and purchase agreement. So sekejap saya share dulu the template of the sale and purchase agreement. Okay. Dah boleh nampak tak dia punya slide, dia punya SMP?
Boleh.
Okay. Okay, so this sample I got it from Puan Hafizah, minta sampel dengan dia semalam. So we are going to look through this sale and purchase agreement terms and conditions and what are the provisions yang ada dalam ni. This sample is similar with the assignments given to you, which is property with title subject to restrictions. So kita akan go through the sale and purchase agreement dan kita akan tengok what are the conditions, representations, issues ataupun how do they deal with it in the clauses because one of the task that conveyancing lawyers do ialah drafting SMP, drafting SMP. Walaupun later on when you go to practice, you can just use any template lah, macam subsale dah ada template with title, without title, but at the end of the day, you still have to tailor-made or custom-made the SMP based on your client's punya issues and conditions. Okay, so the first part of the sale and purchase agreement is the parties punya part. Kalau kita tengok kat sini, this agreement is met the day and year stated in section 1. Kalau this format of sale and purchase agreement, it does not actually include the particulars inside the SMP, but they use the schedule at the back. Schedule at the back. So kalau kita boleh scroll sekejap, tengok the schedule kat belakang tu. Okay. So semua maklumat, oops. Okay. Oh tak turun betul-betul. Okay, semua maklumat berhubung dengan the particulars with regards to the sale and purchase agreement are provided in the schedule at the back of the sale and purchase agreement. Ini satu style lah. Ada satu style lagi, dia masukkan semua maklumat ni inside the body of the agreement. So tapi untuk macam memudahkan, banyak firm yang guna style schedule ni sebab whatever amendments you do, you cuma ubah dekat belakang ni saja without touching the body of the agreement. So these are the particulars of the sale and purchase agreement. The date of this agreement, nama vendor, nama purchaser, particulars of the land, particulars of the building, chargee bank siapa, purchase price, deposit, earnest money, balance deposit, completion date, extended completion date, agreed liquidated damages, date of which the vendor shall discharge the banks as the existing chargee, purchaser solicitor siapa, vendor solicitor siapa. So all these maklumat are included in the schedule at the back of the sale and purchase agreement. So saya rasa cara ni lebih mudah lah. Okay. So this agreement is met the day and year stated in section 1 of the schedule tadi. So tarikh tu kita letak dekat belakang. Between the parties, meaning the first party, the vendor, and between the purchaser, yang mana maklumatnya is stated in section 2 and section 3 of the schedule. So maklumat mengenai vendor, IC number dia, alamat dia dekat belakang. Okay. So this is the first part of the SMP bila kita buat drafting, date dengan parties. Okay. Yang kedua ialah preamble. Preamble ni ada yang tulis preamble, ada yang tulis whereas dan sebagainya lah, bergantung kepada style of drafting masing-masing. So whereas or preamble ni is actually the background story of the transaction. So ataupun whatever related relevant information to be included in the sale and purchase agreement. So kalau dalam sampel ni kita tengok the whereas, the first story yang dikata the vendor is the registered and beneficial owner of the land. So land tu, apa maklumat land tu dekat belakang section 4. And the building, what are the particulars of the building? Then collectively the land and the building is called or referred to as the said property. So throughout the sale and purchase agreement later on, instead of referring to the said land, the said building, the definition that they are going to use is the said property. So the said property bila kita jumpa dalam SMP tu is referring to the land and the building collectively. Okay, satu. So cerita pertama dia cakap vendor ni pemilik tanah tu. Okay. So yang kedua, the parties here too are aware that the land is subject to express condition and restriction in interest as follows. Tanah ini tidak boleh dipindah milik, dipajak atau digadai kecuali setelah mendapat kebenaran pihak berkuasa negeri. Kecuali ni sepatutnya dia. So the second story, the second information that they are going to tell the parties ialah this land is subject to restriction in interest and they are aware about that. Okay. So this consent, the land subject to restriction in interest is considered as a condition precedent. Condition precedence to the sale and purchase agreement. So this is mentioned in section para 3, subject to the consent of the state authority being obtained, meaning this is the condition precedent, subject to the consent of the state authority being obtained for the transfer of the said property, which is, we call it consent to transfer. Okay, the vendor agreed to sell and purchaser agreed to purchase the said property free from encumbrances. So the agreement between the parties ialah the vendor must get the consent first, then with the consent, then this sale and purchase agreement is conditional upon obtaining the consent. And the vendor must sell the property to the purchaser free from all encumbrances, tidak tertakluk kepada apa-apa bebanan, and with vacant possession, dan mestilah boleh diserahkan milikan kosong kepada pembeli. Okay, so itu maklumat kedua yang kita akan dapat daripada preamble ni. Yang ketiga ialah the said property is presently charged to the vendor's bank. The chargee, nama chargee dekat belakang tadi, provide the presentation number sekian. So the third information yang kita tahu daripada preamble ialah, property ni is subject to existing charge. Ada gadaian. Maksudnya the vendor is yet to settle the outstanding loan with the previous. So the fourth information we gathered from the preamble ialah the purchaser intends to apply to a financial institution for a loan to be secured upon a charge over the said property. So kita tahu yang keempatnya, purchaser yang nak beli property ni, dia bukanlah cash buyer. Dia nak mohon loan untuk finance the purchase of the property. Okay. So in this transaction, the purchaser is represented by the solicitor, the purchaser solicitor, and the vendor is represented by the vendor solicitor, pun maklumat dekat belakang. Maksudnya dalam preamble ni, we are talking about the background of the transaction, the status of the land, and who is the solicitor representing the respective parties. Okay. So kalau ada maklumat-maklumat lain berkenaan dengan property tu, ada encumbrances yang lain-lain, dan maklumat tu kita akan letak di preamble ni. Ini background story of the transaction. Okay. So yang clause yang ketiga, part yang ketiga ialah definition and interpretation. Ini biasa dalam agreement. In this column or in this part, we are actually defining the terms that we are using throughout the sale and purchase agreement. So maksudnya bila we mention about the word balance purchase price, it's referring to the sum as stated in section 11. Dan contohnya completion date, apa maksud dia? Semuanya kita letak dekat sini, dan we cross refer dengan the schedule which actually contain the particulars of the ataupun meaning of the terms. So part ketiga tadi, pertama ialah date and parties, kedua adalah preamble, yang ketiga ialah definition and interpretation. Okay. Now baru kita masuk kepada the body of the agreement. Body of the agreement. So this part will actually set out the details, the terms and condition of the sale and purchase agreement. What are the consideration? What are the duties and responsibilities of the parties? What happen if the transaction cannot go through? Or what happen if the one parties default in their obligation under the terms of the agreement. So these are the body of the agreement. Kalau kita tengok daripada slide yang lepas tu, kita ada dalam main terms tu dia ada body of the agreement, dan dia ada boilerplate clause. Nanti kita akan tengok what are main terms of the agreement dan what is meant by boilerplate clause tu. Okay. So now it is hereby agreed as follows. So sekarang kita nak set the contract lah, the agreement. First we are mentioning about consideration. Okay. So what are the consideration in this particular transaction? So we are in consideration of the sum specified in section 9 paid by the purchaser to the vendor as earnest money, the receipt whereof the vendor hereby acknowledges, and a further sum as specified in section 10, which referred to balance of deposit, paid by the purchaser to the vendor solicitor as stakeholder upon execution of this agreement. Okay. So section 9 and 10 collectively referred to as the deposit sum. Maksudnya earnest money yang dibayar dan balance of deposit ni, kedua-dua ni mewakili disebut sebagai deposit sum. As stated in section 8 of the schedule here too, and the vendor shall sell the purchaser the said property as is where is basis, free from all encumbrances and other caveats. So dekat sini we set out first what are the amount of deposit involved in this transaction. Deposit ni dia involve dua perkara, two things. Biasanya pertama dia involve earnest money, yang kedua balance of deposit. Deposit biasanya kita bayar berapa persen daripada purchase price?
10%.
10%. Can we pay extra? More than 10%?
Yes.
Can we pay less?
No.
No.
Not recommended.
Not recommended. Okay. Jawapan dia 10% itu ialah common practice. Common practice. Boleh jadi lesser, boleh jadi juga higher. Dia tidak adalah kata it's a strict rule, kata mesti 10%. But 10% dah common practice. Macam kalau you nak bayar lebih, mungkin ada justification tertentu. Sebab deposit ni memainkan peranan yang penting because it normally becomes the liquidated damages kepada transaction tu. Contohnya, if the purchaser defaulted the sale and purchase agreement, the vendor will forfeit the deposit, the whole deposit and 10% tu as a liquidated damages. Tapi kalau parties agree yang deposit dia nak bayar cuma 8% contohnya ataupun 5%, then dia agree that 5% will be the liquidated damages, then it's up to the parties to decide. Tapi yang prevalence dalam practice ialah 10%. So tadi mention about earnest money and balance of deposit. So deposit 10%, 10% daripada purchase price. Biasanya when we want to buy a property yang sub sale ni, we go and see the sama ada agent ataupun the vendor himself. Tuan punya. Kita deal direct dengan vendor ataupun kita deal dengan agent. So we go and check the house, inspect the transaction, inspect the property, dan kita berkenan dengan property itu. So biasanya vendor akan minta kita letak sedikit earnest money untuk actually indicate our commitment to buy the property. Earnest money dulu, dia bukan lagi 10% deposit tu, earnest money. So mungkin the price that you agreed dengan vendor tu ialah 100,000. So 10% deposit yang sepatutnya you bayar kepada vendor ialah berapa? 100,000, 10% ialah? Pak matematik sikit.
10,000.
10,000. Jadi masa lepas tengok rumah tu berkenan, vendor kata letaklah sedikit cengkeram panggil cengkeram ataupun earnest money supaya kita lock lah property ni tak jual kat orang lain. So you mungkin letak 2,000 sebagai earnest money. 2,000 dulu bagi kat vendor, saya memang berminat nak beli property ni, nanti mungkin balik dan kita akan appoint lawyer, then we will pay the balance of deposit. So earnest money 2,000 yang you bayar pada vendor tu will be the part of deposit 10% tadi. So when both parties have agreed with the terms and conditions semua, jadi nak beli property tu, when you go to the lawyer office to sign the sale and purchase agreement, you bayar lagi baki 8% of the deposit. Sebab tadi dah bayar 2,000, sekarang ada lagi baki 8,000. So 2,000 plus 8,000 yang you bayar masa signing tu becomes the deposit of the purchase price of the property. Okay, faham? Boleh?
Madam,
Siapa tu?
aku.
Hmm.
Madam, earnest money
Ya.
dengan earnest deposit sama ke?
Earnest money dengan
Earnest deposit.
sama. Ada panggil earnest money, ada panggil earnest deposit. Sebab dia nak membezakan earnest money and earnest deposit dengan yang deposit yang actual yang 10% tu. Yang itulah pendahuluan yang bukan mewakili maknanya bukan lagi kita bayar penuh lah the 10% tu. Kita bayar macam booking dululah nak rumah tu. Ya? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so when we talk about deposit, so biasanya ada dua. Sometimes ada juga vendor yang dia tak minta pun you letak earnest money. So you dah tengok property tu, agree, okay saya setuju nak beli rumah ni. Okay, minggu depan kita akan tanda tangan agreement dan dia tak ada minta apa-apa bayaran untuk bagi earnest money. So the 10% deposit tu you bayar masa signing of the sale and purchase agreement. Ada juga yang buat macam tu. So, tapi earnest money ni is common practice lah sebab biasanya vendor dia nak some commitment from the purchaser when they look at the house, kata setuju nak beli tapi tak letak apa-apa macam duit, dan vendor mungkin akan tertanya-tanya purchaser ni betul ke nak beli, ataupun dia tunggu-tunggu tiba-tiba purchaser call tak jadi nak beli. So we have also need to discuss the position of the earnest money tu macam mana. Sama ada refundable or not refundable, itu satu isu jugalah. Okay, nanti kita akan tengok. Okay, so this consideration, yeah.
Sorry for interrupt. From what you explained about earnest money and balance of deposit sum, what I can conclude is that earnest money ni dia macam booking fee lah kan?
Dia macam booking fee, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the balance of deposit shall only be released to the vendor by the vendor solicitor upon receipt of the consent to transfer by the purchaser solicitor. So, because this property is subject to restriction, so bila kita bayar deposit kepada untuk property tu, we are paying to the stakeholders, the vendor solicitor. So, vendor solicitor we keep this deposit dulu. Until the consent to transfer from the purchaser from the state authority dapat, barulah dia boleh release this deposit kepada vendor. So vendor kena tunggulah berapa lama proses untuk dapatkan consent tu, dia tak dapat lagi deposit tu sehinggalah consent dapat, barulah dia boleh the deposit tu can be released to the vendor. Okay. This is the cerita pasal deposit. So now we are looking at the purchase price and manner of payment. Okay, the total purchase price shall be in the sum stated in section 7. Kalau dalam contoh dalam agreement ni, purchase price dia ialah 1 juta lebih. Ini property dekat Shah Alam. The purchase price ialah 1.75 1,750,000 untuk sebuah rumah 3-story semi-detached di Shah Alam. This is actual case lah yang Tuan Hafizah bagi hari tu. So the total purchase price ialah yang stated dalam section 7, maknanya kita akan letak harga belian rumah tu. The balance purchase price shall be paid by the purchaser within the completion date. Itu satu perkara yang paling penting. Maknanya jumlah yang agreed to be paid tu must be paid within the completion date. Okay. Tengok para 3.3. In the event the purchaser is unable to pay the balance purchase price on the or within the completion, the vendor shall grant the purchaser an extension of time. Kita panggil dia extended completion date, but there is interest payable by the purchaser because of the delay at the rate of 8% per annum. 8% per annum. Kita tengok kat belakang nanti. So the purchase price must be paid satu within the completion date. Completion date dia biasanya ialah 3 bulan campur 1 bulan. 1 bulan extended completion date. Ya, dan bila property tu meaning the transaction cannot be completed within the completion date, akan terus ada extended completion date dalam agreement untuk 1 bulan subject to payment of interest. Okay, let's say after the extended completion date itu purchaser masih belum boleh bayar the purchase price, so it's up to parties to decide whether they want to continue or whether the vendor masih nak bagi extension of time kepada purchaser or not. Because if the vendor decided that at the end of the extended completion date he does not want to give any more extension, then the purchaser is considered has committed a default on the part of the purchaser, then agreement will be terminated. Okay. Okay, so ada completion date and ada extended completion date. The parties here to expressly authorize the purchaser solicitor to hold and utilize all sum paid by the purchaser towards discharging the existing charge. Okay, meaning to say part of the purchase price will be utilized to pay the redeem the property from the existing chargee. Maknanya sebahagian daripada duit tu akan digunakan untuk membayar redemption kepada pihak bank. Okay. Okay, so yang seterusnya, balance purchase price after deducting the redemption sum payable to the chargee shall be released by the vendor, solicitor to the vendor within 7 days of the presentation of the valid MOT in favour of the purchaser. So, balance purchase price tu nanti akan dibayar kepada vendor, kepada vendor dalam tempoh selepas presentation of the MOT. Kenapa kita bagi 7 days grace period after the presentation before we make the release to the vendor? Kenapa ada grace period kat situ? Apa rasional dia?
Takut cek tendang.
Takut cek tendang. Okay. Tapi dia bukan 7 days after the presentation of the MOT.
Takut ada
Macam hari ni.
ada perkara-perkara yang tak setuju dalam MOT ke?
Tak setuju dalam MOT, it should be settled earlier lah.
Mungkin sebab service of the MOT tu sendiri makan masa.
Service of the MOT. MOT kita daftar dekat mana?
Land office.
Land office.
Okay,
So
so dia on the spot lah kan?
Bagi masa untuk bayar because the amount is quite big.
Okay. Bagi masa untuk bayar sekarang ni semua online. Once you dapat call daripada lawyer solicitor kata okay, MOT dah present, dah boleh release ni. Kenapa nak kena tunggu 7 days?
Apa?
Okay. So because satu ialah we want to give some grace period because kita takut even though the MOT has been presented, maksudnya kita dah dapat date perserahan semua daripada pejabat tanah, then with the date we can actually advise bank to release. But we also give this 7 days period because kita takut in between these a few days tiba-tiba pejabat tanah call kata MOT rejected. So MOT rejected because tiba-tiba ada caveat ataupun ada some issues with the presentation. So grace period is to make sure that the property or the transaction is really macam go through without any rejection from the land office lah. So sekarang ni lebih cepat lah kalau ada apa-apa yang tak kena dengan presentation tu, mungkin akan cepat dapat notification from the land office. So because itulah to give the grace period in order to make sure that the presentation is in order. Then also to give time to the bank solicitor actually to advise the bank for the release of the money. Okay, so provided further that the purchaser shall only be liable under this agreement insofar as the delay in settling the balance purchase price is due to the fault of the purchaser. So kita mention tadi bayaran purchase price must be met within 3 months, within the completion date or plus 1 month extended completion date. But if the delay which actually caused the transaction beyond the completion date or beyond the extended completion date is due to attribute to the vendor punya part. Contoh, bank dia lambat bagi redemption statement ataupun solicitor dia lambat reply kepada surat yang dihantar oleh purchaser solicitor atau bank solicitor. So all this delay will be excluded from the calculation of the completion period. So when we draft the agreement, we must have this clause 3.6 ni to safeguards our client's interest. Okay. So kita buat exercise sikit on this, purchase price and deposit. Okay. Contohnya, the purchase price of the property is 100,000. 100,000. So the deposit to be paid ialah 10% of the purchase price. So 10% equivalent to 10,000 tadi. Okay, how much is the balance purchase price? How much is the balance purchase price?
90, is it? 90.
90,000. Okay, 90,000 90,000. So harga belian 100,000, deposit bayar 10,000, 10%. Balance purchase price ialah 90,000. Okay, 90,000. Okay, this purchaser obtain a loan of 70,000 saja. Dia kena bayar baki kepada vendor 90,000 sebab dia dah bayar 10,000 sebagai deposit. Tapi dia dapat loan cuma 70,000 saja. So how much is the amount that he need to top up to cover the balance purchase price tadi?
20,000.
Apa?
20k.
20k. 20k ni kita call it the differential sum. So dalam terma dalam SMP kita akan jumpa perkataan the differential sum. So the differential sum between the balance purchase price and the loan obtained by the purchaser dalam contoh ni ialah 20,000. 20,000. So dia kena top up lagi dengan duit dia 20,000 sebab dia dapat loan cuma 70,000 sahaja. Okay. So let's say redemption sum yang vendor ni hutang dengan bank lama dia ni masih ada lagi 30,000. Masih ada lagi 30,000. So how much actually the total amount yang vendor akan dapat?
Uh, 60,000.
Okay.
60.
Berapa jumlah yang vendor akan dapat? Dia hutang dengan bank dia 30,000 lagi. Lawyer sedang buat kira-kira. Okay.
Ni termasuk deposit jugalah, madam.
Kira. Balik pada soalan tu. Berapa jumlah yang vendor akan dapat?
$70,000. Patutnya dia dapat 100,000 kan harga keseluruhan, jadinya sebabkan dia ada hutang lagi dia dapat 70,000 je. Yang balance tu nanti purchaser yang akan bayar ke bank seolah-olah jadi purchase price lah.
Betul. Siapa tu jawab soalan? Siapa yang jawab tadi?
Oh, Alia.
Alia. Okay, thank you Alia. Betul So vendor sebab dia hutang dengan bank 30,000, so purchase price dia 100,000. So tolak 30,000, the actual amount dia akan dapat dekat tangan dia ialah 70,000. So tadi dia dah dapat deposit masa upon signing tu dah 10,000. Jadi baki yang dia akan dapat bila lawyer advise bank nanti ialah ialah sebanyak maksudnya 60,000. So dapat tak dia punya tu? So dalam kiraan ni kita akan jumpa beberapa terma lah. Pertamanya purchase price, purchase price, deposit, balance purchase price, differential sum, loan sum dengan redemption sum, loan sum. Betul. Sekali lagi, purchase price, deposit, balance purchase price, differential sum, loan sum and redemption sum. So ada 6 terma dalam when we talk about payment of the purchase price of the property. Okay, boleh dapat tak? Okay.
Boleh explain semula ke pasal redemption? Saya tak faham.
Okay. Redemption, okay. Dalam transaksi, cuba tulis atas kertas purchase price dia 100,000. Deposit dia ialah 10,000 10,000. So dia dah bayar deposit 10,000 upon signing of the SPA. Maksudnya 90,000 lagi dia kena bayar within 3 months tu. 3 months from the date of this sale and purchase agreement. Okay. So 90,000 tapi purchaser kena bayar kepada vendor baki belian tu 90,000. Tapi purchaser bila dia mohon pinjaman, dia cuma dapat 70,000 je. So dia kenalah come out dengan dia punya duit sendiri sebanyak 20,000. Which we call the differential sum. The differential sum. Perbezaan di antara baki harga belian dengan jumlah loan yang dia dapat. Okay. So daripada 70,000 yang loan yang purchaser dapat ni tadi, 30,000 akan dibayar kepada bank existing charging. So bila lawyer advise, lawyer akan guna loan tu 70,000 yang purchaser dapat, tolak 30,000 yang akan dibayar kepada pihak bank yang masih lagi vendor ni berhutang. Jadi 70,000 loan tolak 30,000. So out of 70,000 tu nanti vendor cuma akan dapat 40,000. 40,000. So nanti bila loan tu release, sebahagiannya akan dibayar kepada pemegang gadaian 30,000. Baki tu tadi akan dibayar kepada penjual. Mana 40,000 So kita tally balik dengan jumlah tadi. Jumlah yang patut vendor dapat selepas tolak harga redemption, jumlah redemption ialah 70,000. 70,000. Jadi tadi baki daripada pinjaman tu ada 40,000 selepas tolak 30. So differential sum ada 20,000. Jadi 60. Campur dengan deposit 10,000 yang purchaser dah bayar. So keseluruhannya dapat 70. So betul lah dengan jumlah yang sepatutnya vendor dapat iaitu 7. Nampak tak Husna? Husna ke tu?
Nampak. Okay.
Okay, yang lain jelas?
Madam nak tanya, kan kena balance purchase price tu kena bayar within completion date kan, yang 3+1 tu kan. Tapi let's say lah kalau si buyer ni, dia loan dia tadi kan dapat 70k je kan. So lagi 20k differential sum tu kan dia kena provide dia sendirilah, duit dia sendiri kan. Kalau let's say dia tak dapat bayar duit tu within that 3+1 tu, kiranya akan berjalan lagi dengan interest ke macam mana?
Yes, berjalan lagi dengan interest. Maksudnya baki tu sebab selagi you tak bayar di differential sum, bank tak akan release the 70,000 tu. Bank akan release the 70,000 upon confirmation yang you have settled the differential sum. Sebab tu bila je You sebagai lawyer, bila you tahu you buat this file, you tahu your client dapat 70,000 je loan instead of 90,000. Sepatutnya sebab baki dia ialah 90,000. So once you dapat je surat a copy of the letter offer from bank stating that the loan given is only 70,000, you will you will have to quickly request from your client, the purchaser, to come up with the 20,000, the differential sum tu. So the purchaser kena deposit 20,000 tu kepada pihak lawyer sebagai confirmation yang dia ada duit untuk bayar 20,000 tu. Sebab ada juga cases di mana at the end of the day purchaser tak boleh nak come out dengan cash tu dan another 20,000. Mungkin masa dia beli rumah tu dia expect dia dapat 90% loan tapi tiba-tiba cuma dapat 70%. So in that situation mungkin dia tak boleh nak proceed with this SMP lah kalau dia tak boleh come out dengan another 20,000 tu. So the 20,000 is very important untuk dibayar dahulu, ya.
Madam, kalau let's say lah dia buat another personal loan for 20,000 tu, ada ke selalunya macam tu?
Memang banyaknya macam tu. Banyaknya macam tu lah. Maknanya sebab dia nak quick, mungkin dia tak expect yang dia kena bayar 20,000. So they have to cari sources yang lain lah, sama ada personal loan, pinjam dengan orang lain untuk cover the 20,000 tu. Otherwise, the transaction memang tak boleh proceed. Ya? Yeah?
Thank you, madam.
Okay. So kita settle dekat purchase price. So I hope you have captured the important terms dalam purchase price ni. Now we are looking at the special condition. Special condition in this case ialah the condition precedence to get the state authority punya consent. So dalam sampel ni, the special condition tu dia letak dekat appendix dekat belakang. So kita tengok dia punya appendix kejap, macam mana dia worded the special condition tu. Okay, so untuk special condition, appendix A, special condition, the state authorities consent. There is a restriction interest on the land. So what will be the obligation of the vendor when the property is subject to restriction? Ini tanggungjawab vendor sebab dia yang nak jual property tu. So obligation dia untuk dapat consent to transfer, kebenaran untuk memindah bilik tanah dia tu kepada orang lain. So the vendor at his own cost and expenses shall apply to the relevant state authority for the consent to transfer. Then the grace period given for the vendor untuk obtain consent to transfer itu ialah 4 months from the date of the submissions of the application. So shall be obtained within 4 months from the date of submission of the application. So vendor ada 4 bulan daripada tarikh agreement tu untuk, ataupun daripada tarikh, sometimes dia letak agreement ada submission application, untuk memohon consent from the state authority. So within these 4 months, the SMP date ni belum lagi running, belum lagi berjalan. So maksudnya kalau dia tanda tangan hari ni, SMP dia 26 hari bulan, vendor ada masa 4 bulan untuk dapatkan consent. So lepas 4 bulan dia dah dapat, so, barulah ataupun within 2 months dia dah dapat. Mungkin 31 Disember dia dapat. So SMP date akan berjalan daripada 31 Disember tu. Walaupun agreement tu dah ditandatangani 2 bulan lebih awal. Jadi 3+1 tu akan dikira daripada 31 Disember onwards lah, 3 bulan ke depan.
Madam, kiranya yang ni sama dengan yang 2.2 yang madam tunjuk tadi tu ke, yang receipt consent to transfer tu, yang balance itu?
Yes.
Oh.
So yang ni obligation ni on the vendor, dan bila dia kena mohon dan berapa tempoh masa yang diberi untuk dimohon diletakkan dalam ni. So any fees, charge, levy or whatsoever nature adalah ke atas imposed on by the state authority is to be paid by the vendor lah. Ini kita nak state siapa yang kena bayar. Okay. So on the part of the purchaser, sebab dekat borang consent tu nanti kita akan nampak ada column vendor, ada column purchaser. So on the part of the purchaser, when he receive the form from the vendor, he has to fill up the particulars dekat borang tu. Biasanya lawyer akan tolong isikan lah, dan cuma dia purchaser tu akan tanda tangan. So this must be done within 14 days. Tarikh-tarikh ni if you notice in the SMP is very important. Berapa hari, berapa tempoh masa, because it will be excluded from the calculation of the SMP. Because sometimes ada purchaser yang kita bagi borang, oh saya dekat overseas, sebulan lagi baru balik. So macam mana kita nak buat? So kita terpaksa delay the process, tapi this date is not counted dalam proses the completion period and so on. So dan this date juga tidak akan diambil kira bila we are talking about interest payable for the delay in payment. So all these dates are very important. Okay, so however, in the event the application to the state authority is rejected or approval is not obtained within the period of 4 months tadi, biasanya parties agree, ini pun subject pada agreement of the parties untuk bagi another extension of 2 months. Bagi lagi 2 bulan untuk vendor buat rayuan kepada keputusan state authority yang menolak permohonan consent tu. So ini pun dates ni bergantung pada parties lah, nak letak 2 bulan ke 3 bulan ke, it depends on the agreement between the parties. In the event the vendor fail to obtain the consent to transfer within the extension period, we have given another extension period of 2 months, but the vendor still fail to get the extension, then the deposit paid thereto by the purchaser shall be refunded to the purchaser free of interest within 14 days from the date of the expiry of the extension period. So duit deposit yang dibayar oleh purchaser kepada stakeholder tadi, kepada vendor lawyer tu, hendaklah dipulangkan dan the agreement is treated as null and void. So this is the important provisions yang must be included in the sale and purchase agreement bila property tu subject to restriction in interest. Okay? Ada soalan setakat ni?
Madam, yang consent ni kita refer jadual 17 ke?
Jadual 17 untuk NLC ke? Borang NLC, yes. Ada borang dekat belakang, dan juga saya rasa ada kalau you tengok dekat pejabat-pejabat tanah punya website tu pun dia ada borang-borang dia lah. Dia tailor macam bergantung kepada state punya forms tu.
Oh, yang JKPTJ punya website tu
JKPTJ punya website, you boleh pergi ke website-website yang state punya pejabat tanah. Contohnya pejabat tanah Kuala Kurau. Kadang-kadang dia punya ada certain pejabat tanah yang ada diletakkan PTG Selangor, PTG KL. Cuba tengok ada borang-borang yang you all boleh download.
Kalau kita orang guna yang general dekat JKPTJ biasa tu je, ini bukan negeri, tak apa ke?
Boleh juga, boleh.
Thank you, Madam.
Okay. So tadi kita dah habis kat special condition. Undertaking from the vendors. So undertaking from the vendor maksudnya aku janji di pihak vendor apa obligation dia lah untuk dapatkan redemption statement, necessary undertakings and duly executed and stamp discharge of charge. Ini adalah part vendor untuk dapatkan. Okay. Then the vendor juga have to actually deliver to the purchaser solicitor as stakeholders copy of quit rent, assessment receipt and income tax number to the purchaser solicitor. Because dalam kes ni vendor ni dia tak ada own lawyer. Kalau you tengok dekat belakang schedule tu nanti, the purchaser solicitor also actually assist the vendor for certain forms yang dia kena isi. But actually dia tak represented lah by the own solicitor. Okay. So application for loan, sebab dalam kes ni purchaser is going to obtain loan, so kita akan ada clauses berkenaan dengan application for loan. So purchase, so akan ada involve purchases financial and purchases financial undertaking. Okay. So tadi as I mentioned, explain tadi pasal how do we utilize the balance purchase price. So application of the balance purchase price will be actually used in the following manner and priority. So tadi kita kata balance purchase price yang partly ialah daripada loan tu 70,000 dan partly ialah daripada differential sum 20,000 yang purchaser kena come up with cash. So how do we utilize this balance purchase price? Maknanya kita tak boleh lah guna duit ni bayar vendor dulu dan baru nak bayar bank. Kita kena use this balance purchase price in accordance with the priority. First ialah to redeem the said property dulu. Jadi kena guna loan tu untuk redeem the property from the existing bank. Sebab kalau kita tak redeem, we cannot actually proceed with the presentation of the property. Sebab sekarang ni all the original document of the property is kept by the existing bank. Maknanya geran tanah yang asal dan apa-apa dokumen yang lain masih ada dengan pihak bank. Jadi we have to redeem the property first, then only we get all the original documents to actually pay all outstanding fees, charges and expenses. Kalau ada any outstanding fees dengan authorities, we have to utilize the balance purchase price ni untuk pay this outstanding fees dulu. Otherwise, it may actually cause the transaction pending lah. Maknanya kalau you tak bayar cukai tanah, you tak boleh register the borang tu dekat pejabat tanah. So vendor kata, saya tak ada cash, saya tak ada duit, you use lah duit daripada bank tu ataupun daripada differential sum tu untuk settle semua hutang-hutang atau bil-bil tertunggak. So you can utilize the purchase price to settle all these outstanding fees.
Madam, kiranya yang 100,000 tu include duit-duit yang kena bayar ni ke?
Pardon?
Kiranya duit-duit yang perlu dibayar ni nak guna redemption sum ni tu sebenarnya include dalam 100,000 tu ke dia duit lain?
Include dalam 100,000 tu.
Oh.
Okay. So now to release, then bila kita dah settle all the outstanding sum, then the rest barulah kita release to the vendor the remaining balance. So release to the vendor the remaining balance.
Sorry madam. Boleh zoom lagi sikit tak?
Zoom lagi sikit, tak nampak Yes.
Nampak dia lama-lama dia jadi pening sikit lah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Masih ada.
Okay, so ini yang baki. Then we are talking about how we utilize the balance purchase price. Okay, yang ni ialah discharge of charge yang tadi, yang untuk redeem, the process of redemption tu. The vendor has warranted that the said property is charged to the vendor's bank. So the vendor punya obligation ialah untuk dapatkan the redemption statement dulu. Berapa jumlah baki hutang yang dia masih tertunggak. So this must be done within 14 days daripada shall within 14 days upon receipt of the request by the purchaser's financier. So bila pihak lawyer bank, purchaser hantar surat minta redemption sum, within 14 days dia kena dapatkan daripada dia punya bank. Okay. Saat sini boleh baca lah kot dia punya how the process of getting the redemption sum, then what will be the effect of the redemption statement tu. Okay. Memorandum of transfer, execution of the memorandum of transfer, kita kita kena hantar the document for adjudication unless and until the purchaser has paid the difference between the purchase price. So kenapa macam tu? Kenapa kita kena hantar MOT for the purpose of stamping and adjudication selepas purchaser confirm bayar the differential sum? Ialah because we want to avoid the issue of kita dah hantar dokumen for stamping, tiba-tiba purchaser tak boleh bayar the differential sum, jadi we may actually incurred loss lah dekat situ sebab dokumen tu dah stamp, tiba-tiba transaction tidak boleh diteruskan because of the inability of the purchaser to pay the balance purchase price. So as a lawyer, kita kena minta purchaser bayar dulu the differential sum, barulah kita submit barang MOT tu for the adjudication punya purpose. Okay. Caveat so when we talk about payment of deposit, meaning sekarang ni purchaser dah part with some amount of money kepada vendor. So tapi dalam proses ni dia dah bayar contohnya 10,000 tadi, the property is set to be transferred to his name because ada proses yang kena go through dulu. So to protect the purchaser's interest, sebab dia dah letak duit dia 10,000 dekat situ, the purchaser is allowed to actually lodge a private caveat over the land. So purchaser lepas dia sign agreement, dia dah bayar 10% deposit, sebagai lawyer you kena masukkan caveat kat atas tanah tu on behalf of the purchaser to protect the purchaser's interest pending the completion of the sale and purchase agreement. And this caveat bukan you kena prepare dua, maknanya entry and withdrawal. Sebab nanti kalau you prepare entry saja, tiba-tiba agreement tak jadi, batal, purchaser tak boleh dihubungi, dah merajuk, dia tak nak sign withdrawal. So caveat dia remain on the land selama 6 tahun. So it will cause a lot of issues lah. Jadi as a lawyer, bila kita minta klien datang ke office kita untuk tanda tangan SMP caveat, kita kena prepare sekali withdrawal of caveat. So once anything happen to the transaction, contohnya the agreement is terminated, once every parties dah settle bahagian dia, kita kena withdraw the caveat by using the withdrawal form. Sebab tu entry dengan withdrawal form tu mestilah disediakan bersekali. Okay. Vacant possession. Vacant possession. The vendor shall deliver vacant possession together with the keys to the said property to the purchaser in the same state and condition in which the said property was at the time of inspection. So ini pun penting sebagai satu clause dalam agreement, because mungkin 2 bulan lepas masa you pergi tengok property tu dalam keadaan good condition. Good condition. Tapi bila lepas 3 bulan transaction, bila dah nak bayar baki duit, dah nak dapat kunci, pergi tengok lagi sekali, pagar dah hilang. Pintu rumah dah terkopak. Kabinet dapur yang dulunya ada dah hilang. So it's important that when you go and inspect the property, as is varies basis, maksudnya you kena dapat the same quality of property bila you bayar duit tu. So that's why this clause is important, that in the same state and condition in which the said property was at the time of the inspection. Okay. So yang seterusnya, payment of outgoings. So ini ialah berkenaan dengan whatever charges, tax or dues on the property has to be a portion. Mestilah a portion apa bahasa Melayu? MBM apa portion?
Dibahagikan lah madam.
Bahagian.
Dibahagikan mengikut tarikh completion date. Maknanya whatever amount yang due sebelum tarikh completion date tu ataupun extended completion date, whichever is applicable, is actually the duties of the vendor to settle. So once the vendor dah bagi kunci kepada purchaser dah bayar purchase price from the day onwards, maknanya apa-apa cukai yang berkaitan dengan property tu adalah tanggungjawab purchaser. So it has to be a portion accordingly. So yang ni lawyer kena buat kira-kira sikit lah. Kalau macam settlement tu bulan 10, cukai pintu setahun nilai dia RM100, RM120 lah senang kira. Jadi kunci diberi pada bulan 10. Jadi kalau ada cukai pintu, cukai tanah tertunggak pada tahun tu, vendor kena bayar RM100, yang baki RM20 tu purchaser yang kena bayar. So must be a portion accordingly. So yang ni representation and warranties, boleh baca sendirilah. Ini berkenaan dengan vendor punya undertaking, covenants and warranties. Yang vendor kata dia adalah registered and beneficial owner, has not entered into the sale and purchase agreement before that, he has the legal capacity, he has duly settled all outstanding, vendor has not committed any act of bankrupt. All these are representation by the vendor. Okay. Yang inspection of the property, purchaser hereby confirms that he has inspected the said property. So ini biasanya clause yang akan diletakkan oleh vendor lah, sebab dia nak make sure yang purchaser ni dah tengok property tu dan agreed dengan conditions of the property. So because we do not want later on any dispute mengatakan, oh saya tak pergi check, saya tak tahu rumah ni macam ni, so saya rasa harga rumah ni dah mahal. Saya ingatkan rumah ni macam ni. So the obligation to inspect the property is on the purchaser, as what he has agreed to pay lah for the purchase price of the property. Okay. Okay, now we come to real property gains tax. Real property gains tax, cukai keuntungan harta. So this tax is paid by the vendor on the gain yang dia dapat daripada penjualan harta tu. Contohnya dulu dia beli property tu tahun 2000 bernilai 70,000, tahun ni dia nak jual 100,000. So kalau kita kira 100,000 tolak 70,000, dia ada untung dalam lebih kurang 30,000 dan 30,000 ni akan ditolak lagi dengan related expenses dalam proses jual beli tu. So mungkin vendor kena bayar tax pada government on 30,000, mungkin cukai yang dikenakan ke atas, instead of 30,000 keuntungan yang gross tu mungkin dalam 10,000. Tapi dia ada lagi percentage kepada 10,000 tu. Nanti kita akan belajar lah on real property gains tax, tapi clauses on real property gains tax ni must be included di dalam agreement. And the most important things ialah satu lagi, from the deposit 10% tadi yang dibayar oleh purchaser kepada vendor, 3% daripada deposit ni must be retained to pay the RPGT. So vendor tadi sepatutnya dia dapat 10,000 deposit yang pertama, tapi dia tak akan dapat net 10,000 tu. Sebab 3% out of this 10,000 ni will be kept by the lawyer to pay the RPGT on behalf of the vendor. Nanti kita tengok dengan detail, nanti boleh kita talk about RPGT. Pening pula. Okay. Default by the purchaser. Okay, so last ni dah nak hujung juga ni, default by the purchaser. Okay, what happen if the purchaser fails, refuse or neglect to pay the balance purchase price even after the extended completion date? So purchaser ni selepas daripada tempoh extended completion date tu pun masih tak bayar lagi duit baki, balance purchase price sebanyak 90,000 tadi. So at this point of time, the vendor shall be at liberty to forthwith terminate this agreement. So lepas extended completion date, vendor kata that's it, dia tak nak lagi nego dengan purchaser ni, so dia decide untuk terminate the SMP. So once he decided to terminate the SMP, dia boleh forfeit the deposit tadi. Deposit tu selalunya dijadikan sebagai liquidated damages. So vendor boleh keep 10% deposit yang dia dah dapat tu sebagai ganti rugi dia, And kalaulah masa stage tu purchaser dah ada juga bayar duit sebahagian daripada purchase price tu, contohnya tadi baki 90,000, purchaser masa stage ni dah bayar lagi 20,000 differential sum tu must be refunded to the purchaser. Dia cuma boleh ambil deposit tu saja sebagai liquidated damages. Okay. So if this happen, the vendor and the purchaser has to actually exchange all the documents yang dia dah masing-masing dah hantar pada pihak masing-masing. Maksudnya kalau at this stage vendor ada bagi original title kepada purchaser, purchaser has to return all the documents to the vendor. Begitu juga on the part of the vendor, kalau purchaser contohnya ada bagi salinan IC dia or apa-apa details dia berkenaan dengan which related to the transaction, the vendor pun have to return all the documents to the purchaser. Okay. And kalaulah dalam tempoh 3 bulan campur 1 tu vendor ni bersetuju untuk benarkan purchaser tu masuk dulu. Tak apalah, masuk dulu rumah ni sebelum balance purchase price or completion date tu tamat. At this time, if that happen, the purchaser also shall re-deliver vacant possession. Kena serah balik vacant possession of the property to the vendor. So this is what happen if there is a default by the purchaser in paying the balance purchase price within the stipulated time. Okay. Seterusnya, default by the vendor. Okay. What happen if the vendor fail, refuse or neglect to complete this agreement or transfer the said property to the purchaser? Okay. So sekarang ni part vendor pula. Vendor ni tak pergi mohon consent ataupun tak pergi mohon redemption. So proses tak boleh nak berjalan until the end of the completion date or extended completion date. Then what will be the remedy to the purchaser? Purchaser boleh pilih either to rescind this agreement, batalkan agreement, dan and the vendor shall within 14 days from the date of the receipt of the written notice from the purchase solicitor refund without interest or whatsoever monies paid by the purchaser including the deposit. So kalau purchaser decided to terminate the SMP sebab vendor tak boleh nak deliver the property to him, so the vendor has to refund all monies yang dia dah dapat daripada purchaser. And beside that, dia kena refund semua duit yang dia dapat. Vendor kena juga pay to the purchaser a further sum as stated in section 14 as liquidated damages. So on top of dia kena refund semua duit vendor purchaser tadi, dia kena bayar ganti rugi kepada purchaser sejumlah wang yang mana biasanya equivalent to the deposit. 10%. So dia kena bayar lagi kepada purchaser. Contoh tadi 10,000 sebagai liquidated damages. So if that happen, then the purchaser shall return the vendor the security documents and other related documents lah. Okay. Ataupun purchaser ni dia tak nak rescind the agreement. Dia nak juga rumah tu. So the purchaser can bring an action against the vendor for specific performance of the agreement. So dia boleh bawa kes ke mahkamah lah untuk memaksa vendor menunaikan semua tanggungjawab dia di bawah sale and purchase agreement. Okay. Thereafter, this agreement shall be treated as null and void and no effect. Dalam parti 1, no claim. So kalau sekiranya selepas mengambil tindakan tu juga vendor masih lagi tidak boleh bayar, then tidak boleh menunaikan tanggungjawab dia, then the agreement will be treated as null and void. Okay, so tadi we are talking about default by either party, sama ada di pihak purchaser ataupun di pihak vendor. Now there are also situation where due to the occurrence of certain things, the transaction cannot be completed. Non-completion other than purchases of vendors default. So in the event this agreement is terminated for the reason that the transfer in favor of the purchaser or the charge in favor of the purchase financer are rejected for registration by the relevant authority, which reason is not attributable to the default of either vendor or purchaser, then the agreement can be actually mutually terminated. The purchaser shall by notice in writing to the vendor may terminate this agreement, and upon such termination the vendor kena pulangkanlah semua duit yang dia dah dapat macam tadi juga, dan purchaser kena return whatever documents yang dia dah dapat lah. Okay. So yang lain, okay, last sekali. So okay, yang lain tu tak ada dah. Okay, government acquisition. Okay, what happen if during the process of completing the transaction, tiba-tiba tanah rumah yang you nak beli tu being acquired by the government. Tiba-tiba rumah tu menjadi menjadi laluan kepada jajaran high speed railway contohnya. So what happen if that situation happen? So in this case, if the subject matter of the transaction become being acquired by the government under the compulsory acquisition, the vendor pertamanya must actually inform the purchaser. Then the purchaser at the purchaser's sole option elect either to annul the sale and purchase agreement or proceed with the sale and purchase agreement. So purchaser dalam situasi ni ada dua pilihan, sama ada nak meneruskan agreement or actually terminate the agreement. Okay. So if the purchaser electing to terminate the sale and purchase agreement, then the agreement shall become null and void, then process refunding the purchase price and returning the documents will happen. Okay, if let's say purchaser dia nak beli juga rumah tu, walaupun mungkin part of it will be acquired by the government, in the event the purchaser is electing to proceed with the sale and purchase agreement, the vendor shall immediately notify the relevant authority of the purchaser's interest in the said property and the terms of this agreement. So vendor kena maklumkan kepada acquiring authority tu, pihak yang nak mengambil tanah tu mengenai kepentingan purchaser, dan whatever compensation paid by the government because of the acquisition will be paid to the purchaser. Okay, so this is when the property is subject to government acquisition. Okay, the rest of the documents ni kita panggil dia sebagai boilerplate clause. Time maknanya sections provisions yang menggambarkan how this agreement is going to be operated. Time, contoh time whenever mentioned shall be the essence of this agreement. Maksudnya whatever we talk about 14 days, 4 months, 3 months plus 1 month is all the essence of the agreement. So cost berkenaan dengan cost, berkenaan dengan notices, successors bound, meaning this agreement shall bind and be for the benefit of the heirs, personal representative of the respective parties. Maksudnya sekiranya salah satu pihak meninggal ataupun sebagainya, maknanya kepentingan di bawah agreement ni akan disambung oleh the representative or the successors entitled lah. Okay. So yang last kali ialah signing page of the vendor and the purchaser, dan tadi kita dah tengok dia punya schedule. Okay. Kalau tengok kat sini, vendor's description, purchaser's description, the said land kita akan describe property tu punya description. Contohnya ni, yang ni Pajakan Negeri 57983 lot berapa, section berapa, Town of Shah Alam, District of Petaling and State of Selangor, measuring approximately berapa keluasan tanah tu. Dan kita ada description of the building, a 3-story detached bungalow bearing address number apa. Dan kita ada maklumat berkenaan dengan existing chargee, Maybank Islamic, okay, branch office so and so. Purchase price 1,750,000, deposit sum ialah 175,000. Earnest money yang dia bayar masa mula-mula booking tu ataupun booking fee lah, masa mula-mula tengok property tu ialah 35,000. So the balance of deposit, tadi kita kata deposit 175, dia dah bayar 35, so baki lagi 140,000. Okay, balance purchase price after payment of deposit, maknanya 1,750,000 minus 175,000 tu tadi, baki dia ialah 1,575,000. So 1,1,575. Completion date 3 months from the date of the receipt by the purchaser solicitor of the consent to transfer. Daripada tarikh purchaser solicitor dapat consent to transfer. Extended completion date, additional 1 month, subject to payment of 8%. Agreed liquidated damages tadi dah 175, 175,000. Date by which the vendor shall discharge the vendor's bank's existing charge within 14 days. So purchaser solicitor is Abdul Rahman Saad and Associates ni, Arsa ni. Then vendor solicitor, dia mention kat sini Abdul Rahman Saad in respect of consent to transfer, discharge of charge and real property against that. Meaning this lawyer is assisting the vendor for in respect of this matter saja, bukannya dalam bentuk drafting and purchase agreement. Okay, so tadi appendix on the consent to transfer. Okay, that's all untuk the browse through the important terms of the sale and purchase agreement. Okay. Okay, ada soalan?
Madam nak tanya, yang untuk CPHT tu kan yang dapat oleh vendor kan?
CKHT? Apa tadi?
Kan dia kena borangkan CPHT kan? Untuk purchaser pula dia kena filekan CPHT tu. Tapi saya dia tanya kenapa purchaser dia kena bayar juga dekat LHDN masa dia filekan CKHT tu
Dia
nampak flow dia ke dia bayar just untuk submit application je?
Untuk purchaser sebenarnya dia tak kena bayar apa-apa. Dia just macam submit borang tu ialah untuk notify that they are acquiring the property. Tapi yang akan kena bayar CKHT tu ialah vendor. Tapi the government, saya tak tahu sejak tahun berapa, they have met actually, dia buat satu cara lah supaya vendor ni dia tak lari daripada bayar CKHT tu. Kalau dulu-dulu vendor jual property dan dia tak, kalau yang tak nak bayar cukai tu dia just senyap macam tu, dia tak submit borang. So government having difficulties in tracing siapa yang tak bayar CKHT ni. So salah satu cara yang government introduce ialah duit daripada deposit yang purchaser sepatutnya bayar vendor tu mestilah dipegang oleh purchaser solicitor untuk membayar CKHT bagi pihak vendor.
Jadi yang 3% tadi tu ke madam?
Yes, yang 3% tu. 3% tu on behalf of the vendor. Maksudnya government buat satu mekanisme supaya government boleh tarik siap-siap cukai keuntungan harta tu daripada duit deposit yang dipegang oleh purchaser solicitor tu. So vendor tak boleh nak lari lah. Maksudnya duit tu memang akan dibayar bagi pihak vendor daripada wang deposit yang dipegang oleh purchaser solicitor ataupun vendor solicitor tu. Itu dia, that's why dia impose dekat condition tu. Maksudnya out of kalau deposit tu tadi 10%, tolak 3% kena bayar sebagai CKHT punya cukai. So vendor cuma dapat 7% daripada jumlah tu. Dan 3% ni juga adalah macam minimum kalau cukai yang kena bayar oleh vendor tu lebih daripada amount tu, dan vendor kena top up lah daripada jumlah tersebut. Kalau kurang pun dia mungkin kena will be refunded lah. Tapi the amount yang lembaga hasil tetapkan ialah 3% untuk dipegang. Okay?
Alright, thank you madam.
Okay. Ada soalan lain? Okay. Semua dah faham ke? Semua dah confused ke? Semua dah apa?
Madam, lagi satu yang tentang kita kena minta state authority punya consent tu, kiranya 4 bulan tu tempoh untuk apply and then baru startnya pembayaran 3+1 tu. Cuma kalau 4 bulan tu tak lepas baru minta extension 2 bulan, kiranya 6 bulan and then baru 3+1 tu berjalan.
Yes, betul. Dia selagi tak dapat consent tu, date of the SMP tu tidak efektif. Okay. Yang lain okey?
Madam,
Hmm.
saya nak tanya lah.
Boleh. Okay. Siapa tu?
Wafi di sini.
Hafiz.
Kalau biasanya dia purchaser nak rescind the contract, madam kata vendor kena bayar balik semua duit purchaser dah bagi tu kan. Biasanya akan dapat balik semua ke? Biasanya lah.
Okey, sebab tu duit yang dipegang tu biasanya kita tak release terus kepada purchaser lah, kepada vendor Sebab tu macam biasanya balance purchase price ni the stakeholder, the lawyer akan pegang dulu. So dia tak boleh release automatically kepada vendor. Deposit memang biasanya kita akan release kepada vendor selepas macam contoh yang tadi, once consent dapat dia daripada pihak berkuasa authority, 10% deposit tu boleh diserahkan kepada vendor. Tapi duit-duit yang lain tu, yang differential sum, sebab part of it is loan sum so memang kita tak akan serah kepada vendor. So duit tu akan dipegang oleh stakeholder, dipegang oleh pemegang taruh sama ada vendor solicitor ataupun purchaser solicitor lah. Jadi nak kata tak dapat tu, kalau duit tu dah di tangan vendor mungkin agak susah untuk dapat lah. Tapi kalau duit tu dipegang oleh stakeholder, stakeholder have to do the necessary lah bila termination berlaku. Ini kena refund and so on. Okay?
Faham. Thank you, madam.
Jawab. Okay, so kalau tak ada soalan, then I think untuk today's discussion will be a guide lah for all of you to do the drafting of the SMP. Salah satu dokumen yang you kena buat untuk individual assignment. So contoh SMP ni saya ada upload dekat files tu. You can use this template ataupun you all juga boleh guna template-template yang lain yang you all dapat lah mungkin daripada kawan-kawan di legal firm dan sebagainya. This is one of the sample. Tapi kalau ada firm lain drafting style dia berbeza, so you can adopt anyone. Boleh guna yang berbentuk schedule macam ni ataupun boleh juga guna sampel yang memang letak all the information di dalam body of the agreement. Okay, so hopefully dah cover. Then I think hopefully it assists you in doing your assignment as well lah. Okay, ada apa soalan lain lagi?
Untuk file tu kan madam kata yang checklist, flowchart dengan undertaking dengan statutory declaration tu boleh guna English kan, the rest BM. Kalau macam SMP ni kena BM juga ke boleh English juga?
SMP saya nak in English. SMP must.
Yang borang-borang tu je in BM.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so hopefully kalau tak ada apa-apa soalan itu saja untuk hari ini. So kita tangguh. Sebelum tu saya kena download tumbler dulu. So tadi saya ada mention about that our midterm will be postponed after semester break satu. Dan untuk minggu ni ialah due date untuk you all punya case review. Hopefully everyone dah ni. Cuma satu lagi yang you all dah hantar fax tu saya baru sempat tengok sampai TLB3 ya, yang saya dah letak okey dan sedikit comments tu. Tapi hopefully untuk yang lain tu with the today's discussion you all boleh dapat macam gambaran what is supposed to be your price amount yang you kena letak dalam fakta tadi. Kenapa macam bila amount tu ada juga yang saya nampak macam amount loan sedikit. Contohnya property dia 700,000, loan dia dapat cuma 100,000. So of course in that situation the differential sum is very high lah. 700, 100 maksudnya they have to kena come out dengan 600,000 duit cash sendirilah. Ada juga yang nampak what happen if your redemption sum, the redemption sum is more than the purchase price. Apa yang akan berlaku? Redemption maksudnya hutang, purchase price yang vendor jual pada pembeli ni ialah 100,000. Tapi redemption sum dia yang jumlah yang dia tu hutang dengan bank adalah 150,000. So itu pun you kena very careful lah bila you letak amount tu, because in that situation kalau hutang dia 150,000 tapi dia jual dekat you 100,000 je, meaning to say the vendor has to come up with another 50,000 to top up in order to get the property redeemed from the bank. So ini meaning to say vendor dia kena deposit siap-siap dekat dia punya lawyer 50,000 as the top up sum lah untuk the redemption tu, sebab redemption dia more than the purchase price. So that one also you must be very careful lah dalam meletakkan jumlah-jumlah yang dalam fakta tu. So dalam fakta based on your facts tu tadi, you dah boleh buat agreement dan masukkan details tu dalam schedule ataupun dalam template yang you all dah download tu lah. Ya? Okay? Okay, kalau tak ada apa-apa persoalan, itu saja untuk hari ni. Okay. Syami ada apa-apa?
So far tak ada.
Tak ada Okay. You all punya final exam will be online final exam kan?
Yes.
Online, ya? Okay. Okay, itu saja untuk hari ini. Hopefully everything semuanya dalam keadaan baik lah, insyaAllah. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Soalan, madam.